Welcome. And today I'm not going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter what time of day. I'm going to take a cue from Brandy and I'm going to say happy day to you, like she says on all of her videos. Anyway, I want to welcome you to this week's presentation of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And as you see, we got five people on the screen today because one of the additions this week is our new team member, Josh Kelly, who this he's going to be on the side of the host this week. Last session, he was actually a guest, but now he's one of the team. So now he's going to be on there along with our certified team members, Cheryl Eisenhower and Brandy Biswell and myself. So my name's Jerry Eisenhower again. Thanks for being here today. And just like every week, we want to bring somebody of value. We want to bring a subject matter of value, and this week is no different. And the gentleman we have as our guest today, I'm going to tell you real flat out, he probably presented one of the most knockout seminars at the Mohegan Sun in the last couple of weeks. And I don't even know if he knows how many people he influenced with that. Now, I need to clarify something. Anthony told a lie on there. He said that my original analysis was 82 pages and it was only 79 pages, but it was a lot of information. But what he didn't tell you a fib about was he implemented everything. And that, my friends, is a difficult task, as you can see, because when I do an analysis, it gives you piles of work. And the next week, Anthony was at work with this. So our guest today is a gentleman by the name of Anthony Valerio. I first met Anthony back in October of 2020. He contacted me and wanted me to come to his office and do an on-site 2-day analysis. And we had never really met each other, talked, and I walked in there and I saw Four Winds Masonry at that point, which is now Four Winds Chimney. And I saw it 3 years ago, which was 2 years after Anthony had started this. And what I've been able to see is Anthony has built one of the most phenomenal teams of players. One of the few teams, and I tell people this, that Anthony, I swear those guys would take a bullet for you. I'm really serious. When you look at this, and when I'm teaching a class and they're in there, I'm looking at all those Four Winds black t-shirts, and they're all attentive and they're playing. So, Anthony, how are you doing today, brother?
Good, good. Just so you know, too, anything past 10 pages or anything past 10, I typically round up. I round way up. So that's where I went to 82.
I understand.
Just
I
knew it was
understand.
more than 10.
That's it. It was a lot to do, though, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So, Anthony, I'm going to start out here. Let's tell the folks that are listening, tell us a little bit about Anthony's background. Give me a short synopsis of who Anthony is and who Four Winds Chimney is, okay? You're located in Rochester, New York, but I'm going to let you take it from that point.
Yeah, so Four Winds Chimney, we're out of Rochester, like Jerry said. We just finished our 5th year in business, which was February 2018. And my background is I grew up in a masonry family, always with a focus on chimneys and fireplaces. So my big claim is 4th generation at it. So I grew up in a big family business. They're about an hour and some change away from me. They're still in business, very close with me. And but yeah, out of Rochester, we run 29 full-time employees here. Married, my beautiful wife Laura, 2 kids Evie are a big reason why I do everything that I do, and yeah, just happy to be on.
That's it. And like I said, the whole thing is this is a family, not just family members, because you actually have 2 sisters that work in the business, but a true family atmosphere when you go there. I had the privilege, I actually visited there on February the 14th of this year, and I went there in the morning. And it was your anniversary, your birthday of starting the company. Luckily, I was in the area, so I was able to come by and wish you a happy anniversary and talk to some of the guys and watch them rolling out the door like they do every day, like clockwork. So
Yeah.
let's get started with the round table. Cheryl, why don't you go first? What's the first question you would ask Anthony today?
One of the things I keep hearing you talk about is people over profit. What led you down that path?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so that's, I think that's been our big moral compass at Four Winds. And, there's some like subcategories off that. I mean, our big saying is goodwill above all else, and really goodwill above all else materialized in the business was people over profit. And, I always say, I kind of dumb it down, that I was never like a good numbers guy. Like, that was never my thing. I came in knowing how to do the work. I'm very confident in that. My family gave me a really great work ethic, and, but I was never that focused on the numbers. I was focused more on how people felt working for me and how I wanted them to feel. And that, because I grew up in it. Other than my family business, I worked for other businesses along the way, especially when I moved to Rochester. And, there were certain events that went down where I just realized that, like, when just how I felt when employers put numbers over their employees' well-being, that if anything, the business suffers. I mean, I saw that clear as day. So when I started Four Winds, that was it. I just never wanted to be that focused on it. And it not with a carelessness. Like, in the beginning, I had to know the bank account was growing. I mean, that was like the most basic metric for me. And, but still was never my guiding force, because numbers were never the guiding force. It was always how people felt working here. I wanted them to feel like this was a different place for them to work than they ever have been before.
So, Cheryl, does that answer your question on that? Because I want to add this too to what Anthony just said. Whenever I do an analysis, one of the things that people have to share with me is what's their vision for the company. And some of the things that Anthony shared with me were he wanted a workforce that was well compensated with great benefits, but they didn't have to work 60 and 70 hours a week. That was one of his key thought processes in building this company, was how to do that, because he wanted people to have a work-life balance, which is vastly important in today's world. So, Brandy, let's go to you next. What's your first question for Sir Anthony?
Yeah, so we already mentioned you have two sisters that work in the company with you. And normally, we tell people don't hire family. But you and your sister seem to work really well together and seem very close and don't seem to step on each other's toes. Tell us how you accomplish that.
Yeah, well, I will say, with Maria in the beginning, we definitely stepped on each other's toes. And I partly thank you for helping remedy that. So, but, I grew up in a family business, like that was it too. So I had that going in mind. Now, me and my family, we definitely have our arguments on a job site. I think like the classic thing, like how do you break up an Italian wedding? You tell them the concrete truck is here. Like that was pretty typical for my family. And, like it just was typical. So, when it's both, when Maria came on first, my younger sister, we definitely had because there's a family dynamic, and you really have to separate the two somewhat. Love definitely guides everything, but you definitely have to separate it somewhat. And I think in the beginning, it was new for her seeing me in this role. It was new for me seeing her in that role. And so we had our quarrels. I was already in this decision-making process. She was kind of coming in kind of in the middle of that, not really used to it yet. And, but, we really, it always goes back to communication, looking at the bigger picture. So we would argue, and then we would communicate, and we would talk about it, and then we would argue and communicate, and then somebody would cry. And, and then, but I think that's a crucial point for family or even close friends to work through. I think it's very normal. I think it's expected. And I think if it didn't happen, something's wrong. And, but if you could push through that, which we did, the other side of that is just straight gold. I mean, it's just absolute gold. And now my older sister works here too, Gina, and, and same thing. It's just communication along the whole way. So.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I want to back up what Anthony just said, okay? It wasn't always so pretty there, was it, Anthony?
Not at all.
It wasn't. When he said the crying, yeah, there was crying, and yeah, it was on both sides. It wasn't just Maria. So, hey, grown men can cry. And it was part of the learning process. So, Josh, it's your turn. Turn your mic on, and what would you ask Anthony?
So the first thing I'm going to ask, and be off topic, have you been to Strangebird, the brewery, yet?
Is that up my way?
It is.
No.
My college buddy owns it. Rochester.
No
So,
shit. That's cool.
Yep. So that was gonna be my first question. So it's a little off topic.
Nope. I'll check it out.
No, I'm sitting there in awe, like how you could work with your sisters. 'Cause I have two very different sisters, and I'm like, I would kill them.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd be family after like a week.
Yeah.
So I'm very in awe. But you know, you've grown pretty rapidly, and with a much different approach than me. And it's taken me a long term time to realize that you know, you don't have to work 70 hours a week. Really and truly. But you know, a lot of it, my questions are going to come down: how are you recruiting these good employees? And because that seems to be a real issue for companies.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems that way. So I'll tell you the avenues that we use, and this is, I like this topic because it's twofold for me. One, like how we really the only way that we recruit, not only way, but the big way is through Facebook, through social media. We spend a lot on content generally for the business. We make a lot of content, and I repurpose that for a lot of different things. So that's definitely, of course, to get jobs, to attract customers, to promote our brand. On the second side of that, because we recruit through Facebook, social media, I also try to promote our culture here, because that's one of our strongest things that we have going for us. But everything is through Facebook, through social media. And so that's a big one. So they can, when they apply, when they see the links, when they see the videos, they're already getting a good idea of what our culture is here. And it was I forget who Jerry had on. This was a while ago, and it always stuck in my head of very simple, like that post should, whatever, let's say you're making a post for employment, the top 3 lines of that post should solve the conflict that the potential applicant has in their head at the current job. Room for advancement, benefits, competitive pay, teamwork environment, training, anything like that. First 3 lines should solve that conflict somebody has at their job. And this is kind of what I talked about too. And at the Mohegan Sun, it's like, we're, as small business owners, it's a great thing, but also realizing that we're up against companies like Amazon and whatever big companies in your area, who sometimes can match or beat the wages that we start people out at sometimes. So what's the advantage from there? I mean, and really, you have to try to for us, we try to capitalize that in the first 3 lines of any post that we made, all through Facebook, social media. Second, which I think ties into culture of a company and how you treat your people, is, so like Alan Rush talks about how when you're presenting when you're going to a customer's house and you're presenting an estimate, what makes you different than the competitor that's going there? Classic responses: well, we're certified. Well, we do this. I mean, every other company is saying that same thing. Every other company. So what really makes you stand out? Putting that to the employment side of things and recruiting side of things, you have to find those things that stand out. And so I narrowed that down to my employees. What makes me stand out with them? What makes Four Winds Chimney stand out with them? So, we say the greatest compliment is when a customer refers you to a family or a friend for business. I think the greatest compliment is when an employee refers you to a family or friend to come work at the place that they're working at. That's huge. I mean, that's the huge part. So that's what we try to do. So employees referrals are a good one for us. They've always panned out really well. The other one is Facebook, all social media. So that's the new word of mouth. And I feel like if you're not capitalizing on social media, you're just missing out on a really big picture.
Okay, Josh, that answer your question?
No, that was great.
Well, I'm going to keep on that same path because, Anthony, not only have you been able to hire successfully, I think the bigger thing is that you keep what you hire. You're not having a revolving door. When I go into your door, I'm seeing them same faces. When I go in there, it's the same people. We're not seeing this in and out the door that we see at so many different companies this day and time. And I also don't see what I call quiet quitting going on. If I go by your place, folks, they start early. If you're going to see Anthony's Cruise in operation, you better get your butt there about 6:30 in the morning, which is hard for a boy that don't like to get up in the morning, but I'm going to get over there because I want to see him. But what is the trick to sustaining that culture with these people? That's the big secret, I think, that Anthony holds.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely involvement on the owner's side, which goes, yeah, and I get that. So it's both. It's like, I think for me, I had to identify what kind of business I wanted. Like, of course, I could be a very hands-off business owner. My business does well. It could, technically run itself almost, but do I want that? And some people do, which is totally okay. I, felt my one of my strong suits was the ability to lead, include others, and make people feel a part of. And I like being involved in my business. And so one, I think it's, owner involvement, keeping the morale going. Two, I think it's employing the people that have usually that have been with you a while. I call them storytellers, to talk about how it used to be here, to keep the culture going. That's probably just as important as a company grows, that you have key storytellers in place that keep culture going and also talk about where we came from. And so I also invest a lot in just the extracurricular stuff. I mean, like you said, I talked about my vision for the company with you, and years ago, top of my list was a 40 to 45 hour work week, where people are making a great wage, the equivalent like they were working a 60-hour work week. I knew that, you knew that, my employees knew that, always with them in mind. And then a lot of it's the extracurricular stuff that we do, the pig roast, the cookout, the extended holiday vacation. Just, we're doing National Hot Dog Day coming up, calling it a half day and cooking out. Just all stuff like that separate you and separate you from others. And, I looked at it like people talk about the waste of losing an employee, losing someone that you've put time into training. So, and that it could be 1 to 3 times their salary, at least when you calculate it all in. And so I'm like, I would much rather spend X amount to have a positive, upbeat culture here than recycle people over and over. I mean, there's that waste of money. There's inefficiency of getting jobs done on time because you're losing quality people. I mean, the list just goes on and on. That'll spiral.
Yeah. And I'm going to add this to it. And Brandy, I think you can verify what I'm getting ready to say. I can walk onto a company's property, and within 5 minutes, I can sense, and Brandy's shaking her head. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. You can actually sense the character of those people. I just did a SWAT meeting this week with an employee, and it was a new workforce from a year ago. And believe me, you can sense that when you're in the room. Brandy, do you agree with what I'm saying here?
Yeah, absolutely. The culture.
The culture, you sense it when you come in. So Cheryl, your turn. What would be your next question for Anthony?
So I'm big on training, and I know you are too. Give us a little bit of what you do in your company to train, and also to get these guys to buy in to what you're telling.
Yeah. I think the two go hand in hand. So one is definitely like we talked about earlier, the culture stuff, all of that, which helps the buy-in, and then the other part is investing in employees, and that ties into the training. I think if you have the two, culture, investment, and training and advancement, that's what gets an employee to buy in. And we invest heavily. I mean, part of it was like selfish. Like my family had a good reputation. I had a good reputation, and I would never want to tarnish that at all. And I've said it before, I would drop down to 1 truck in a heartbeat if it meant my quality and reputation was going to suffer, in an absolute heartbeat. And, so typical for training for us, I mean, we have learned to train a lot in-house. I've had Jerry come in, other people come in, train a lot in-house. We're quick to get guys certified. Like, I had one guy get CSIA certified, within like 3 months of working here. He actually did the best on the test out of anyone else, but by, and I didn't care about like, well, he's only been here. He needs to be here 6 months first and needs to do that. I'm just like, man, if I could insert, I mean, it cost me, let's say $2-ish K, around $2,000. And at that time, a little less, actually probably a little more when you include his weekly paycheck. But I'm like, at 3 months, I'd be willing to take that risk. I would either lose $2,000 or I would invest in an employee to make them feel invested in, to produce much more than that. And so that's been it. So we get guys certified, CVC training. Our guys go through that a minimum of an hour a week. That's a standard of working here. Brought them out to the convention this year in Mohegan Sun, brought 15 or 16 people out to Vegas before. We send them to trainings. We just built a mini house in the shop that's got a wood stove, furnace, water heater inside of it, a fireplace, B-vent, Class A chimney. It's got all that just to keep that going. So, and I think that ties into all of it. When employees feel invested in, they buy in. That's the biggest thing. So.
Okay. So I hope everybody's listening, because this is what's going on. In fact, Sean Kramer just said one of the great things is when your employees can tell the story. And see, Anthony, I think that's what's happening here. Your employees can tell the story, and they actually sell you and the company to prospects. And that's one of the secrets I think you have of building this company up. So Brandy, what's the next thing? Because you're very familiar with Anthony's company. You've worked with them on their service Titan integration. So what would you ask Anthony?
Yeah, well, first a quick story, because Jerry, kind of goes back to what you said. Like, when I visit somebody, I want to be there before anybody else in the morning. And I remember the first time I went to visit Anthony, we got in a day early and just went by to know where I was going. And I was asking, what time do you guys start? Because I want to be here before. And I remember Vinny saying, I get here at 4 a.m. And I'm like, I get up at 4. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to beat anybody. I'm not going to beat you here.
Yeah.
But my question would be, so I had the pleasure of watching when it was just Maria with a little bit of Sarah's help, and she was running around like a mad woman. And now you have Aaron and Jill and Sarah full-time, and they are phenomenal. Did you hire them, or did you let Maria hire them? How did you get these phenomenal girls?
Kind of both. I'd say, I'd say the first hire was kind of my guidance, because I knew we needed it. After that, I went off what Maria was telling me. And I will say too, I mean, definitely with your help, and I have talked you up a lot, and I can't be more thankful for everything that you've given us, the knowledge that you've given us. And I always say, like, I've told other people that have asked me about you, and I've said, one of the best investments I ever made for my company was bringing Brandy on. So, Jerry, you're a close second to Brandy.
Ladies first.
That's right. No, but so the first one, kind of Maria, and then tying into the culture, all that. Once we started to hire more, per Maria's advice, the training side of that was all on her. And I said this at the convention, like, I, of course, am proud of the guys out in the field, like, incredibly proud of what they do. Happy, grateful. I am more proud, I feel, of how our office runs, because it's clean, efficient, consistent. It's just, and so, yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. They care so much about 4 wins and the job that they do, and they aim to get better. It's incredible.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I learned something today. I always knew that I could not depend on Brandy after 6 p.m. in the evening. Now she's blown me away, because now I know I can't depend on her at 4 a.m. now. I mean, really, that just shocks me that you actually, but it's the truth. Those guys are there. They're knocking it out of the park. Didn't you see that, Brandy, when you rolled in there the next morning?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
It's like poetry in motion. And these trucks, even though they're in snow country, they're clean, they're organized. All those, the brand is so predominant there. It's unreal. So, Josh, what will be your next question, brother?
Oh, I wasn't prepared. No, I'm sitting here taking notes for my own, my own company, because I've always said I used to have sort of a minister of fun, and I've been looking to replace that because that's something I'm very weak at. I'm when you talk about you don't like the numbers guys, I'm like, well, that's me. I'm very much the guy who's going to write out all the brass tacks stuff. So I'm like, I've been missing that minister of fun, like you've been saying, listening and keeping thing, and who's in charge of making sure we do cookouts and things like that. So no, I'm learning, just like everybody else listening is learning.
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, like I said, in the beginning, for me, I wasn't good at being guided by numbers. I just couldn't work that way. I had to break stuff down very simple for me. I'm not built that way. And, but as we grew, that's for sure. As we grew, I had to become more focused on numbers. It's still never a guiding force for me. But now with this many people, I'm responsible for this many people and those many families. And so I can't make careless and reckless decisions. And I said it also at Mohegan Sun, it's my job. I've learned, one, be a leader, but run a profitable business that's going to be around for my community, my employees, and my family for years to come. So.
Okay. So, Anthony, here's one of the things, and you set it up there on the stage that day. I gave you, in your words, 82 pages. In my words, it was 79 pages, but it was a lot. But here's the thing. You did everything that I told you to do. Okay. You really did. And which is so unusual. You didn't get discouraged. You didn't get overwhelmed. But one of the things that I have encouraged you and others to do is get outside of the industry. Start going to other events. And last year, you did that. You went to Tommy Mello's vertical track. You and one of your friends there in Rochester, I forget his name right now, but y'all both came in. You actually brought your family with you. The kids were out swimming with the pool because Anthony's got a family side. He cares deeply about guys and gals. I'm gonna tell you, you don't want to mess with those two kids. That Italian blood will boil too fast. Don't mess with the kids or the wife. But anyway, what have you learned? I mean, if we look at it, much of what you have learned from me, from Tommy Mello, from other mentors, is that a value? Is that something that you would advise other people to do, to get outside of just the industry, but go listen to what HVAC, what plumbers, garage door people? I mean, I'm sure you were shocked when you sat there at Tommy's event and listened to these garage door people and these HVAC companies running hundreds of trucks. So would you advise that?
100%. And it's double sided. Like, I am grateful for what I have learned and continue to learn at in the chimney industry, specifically the trainings, conventions, all that. But then once I went to Tommy's thing, I just also realized that there's this whole kind of other world out there. And so it's picking industries that are similar. We're a home service business, right? No reason to complicate it. Home service business starts off estimate, inspection, present a sales quote, find a solution, and do the install / repair work. That's cookie cutter for so many other industries. And and I feel like where the chimney industry is at, especially from what I've heard, is we're relatively new with how we've advanced in the last, 15, 20 years. A lot of stuff seems newer, but there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. This has been adapted by HVAC companies, Tommy's company, garage door companies, home service companies, plumbing companies, systems that they've already came up with that are very applicable to what we do. And, Tommy's event was great. I mean, it reaffirmed some things for me. It also gave me some new ideas. Recruitment. I mean, to tie that back in, we've always been very good at Facebook, social media with the recruitment. I just hired this company, though, that is helping with that even more. But again, it's all through Facebook. It's all through social media, and just a lot of little ideas that I picked up there. And it's always like the little idea that can have a compounding effect over time.
Okay, so here's your opportunity to help a fellow person in business, okay, who is Sean Kramer, who likewise has that big analysis with all those things to do, okay? So here's this question I posted on the screen. How did you make time for yourself to work on what Jerry's analysis suggested? Did you bring team members in? Did you seclude yourself? Did you do it one step at a time? So what would be your advice to Sean, who's going through the challenges that you've been through?
Yeah, I'll give the good side and the bad side of this. So, one, I definitely made the mistake of diving too much into work and kind of neglecting my home personal life. I don't know if neglect is the right word, but it was always for my family. But so one, I think it's time block, find as much balance as you can with it. Outside of that part, I definitely did. So I just made the time. I mean, I made the investment to have it done, to have Jerry come out, do the analysis. So I made the time afterwards. Otherwise, I'm wasting so much money to have Jerry come out. And so I took that seriously. I mean, that went into like where I want to see the company go. I don't make the time now, it's never going to happen. I knew that over time, Jerry comes in, this is all fresh on my mind. If I keep prolonging that, I'm going to lose bits and pieces over time. And so that was simple for me. Made the investment, had the goal where I want the company. When it came down to brass tacks and doing it, I 100% involved team members. So that was a big one. So most of us went through that report. And we kind of listed off order of importance, what we could do now, what could happen down the road. But we went through that list, talked about the company vision, and I just kind of employed or empowered people to take little things on. And, everything gets tweaked along the way. I mean, our big thing was warehouse. It was a complete crap show back there. You remember that. Just a huge, if you could have a huge mound of inefficiency and put it in 10,000 square feet, it would be our warehouse back then. And, so that was the first thing, that was a big one for us, but people want the challenge. People want the responsibility. It goes back to feeling invested in, feeling believed in, employ team members. This is where I want to go. 3-year vision. This is where I want to go. These are the steps to get us here. And then you tie into your team's strengths and then you build from there. It always gets tweaked along the way. But yeah, I mean, I just looked at like the waste dollars, not to say guided by numbers, but what a waste of really time and energy and of course money to go to these trainings, to hire a business coach like Jerry and then not implement anything. That makes 0 sense in my head. So,
and let's add this in. Anthony, when did you go to Disney World recently?
Yeah, this right around Christmas time.
And how long did you go to Disney World?
9 days.
And who all did you take?
Wife and kids.
Okay, so here's a man in this business that went to Disney World for 9 days in December. And did your business keep rocking and rolling while you were there?
I like to say I think my business does better sometimes when I'm not here. So
okay, so Sean, the reason I put that in is so you have something to strive for.
Yeah,
because this is what's amazed me. I know a lot about Anthony's personal life, his families, his struggles, all those kind of things. And to me, that was a remarkable accomplishment within 3 years.
Yeah.
So Cheryl, what's next from you?
Okay. What I'd like to do is just take a little bit of a curve. I know you're into training. I know about your people, but I have only got to imagine that you have focused I was trying to think of a good word there, focused your employees to work with the customers and make them one of the most important assets. Tell us how you go about doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ties, again, not to keep bringing up culture, but it ties into core values of a company that you have to lay out, for your staff and then continually reaffirm. And, so going back to like goodwill above all else, and just providing value to the customer, always looking out for the customer and doing that because it's the right thing to do. And so, we definitely, verbalize that. We vocalize that. When I say like how I want an employee to feel working here, I've said the same thing about customers. Like, again, dumbing this down for me in my head was like, I never wanted a customer to pull into their house, look at their chimney or fireplace, and have a negative feeling towards my company ever. And just absolutely ever. And so, reverse engineer that. It's, it's like the value we provide to customers, staying in communication, how those things set us apart from everybody else. The entire process from start to finish, is what we pride ourselves in. I say like, we're not like the best masons. I mean, I've worked with great masons, and that's not what sets you apart from customers. It's the relationship that you build with them. And, so we do good masonry work, good. Sometimes it's great. Most of the time it's good masonry work. But we focus on building a relationship so much with customers throughout the whole process that in the customer's mind, the experience was phenomenal. And, yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, Brandy, your turn next. And if you would you address also not only your question, but the question I just posed on the screen from Sean?
Yes. So Sean's question was, how large were you at the time? I can't read it because my settings are in the way of it.
I see it.
I see it. And what did your leadership team look like at that point?
So when Jerry came in, I mean, it was definitely, it was kind of me, and I had just key players, key ones I started the business with. And then as we grew, as we added more employees, really though, those key players in the beginning were the ones that could do the job, sell the work, keep the culture going. I mean, they could wear all hats. And now, fast forward, they're also the storytellers of today, but they could wear all hats. So it takes different forms. Then as we grew, then I moved one person out of the field. And current day, what we have now is Maria, of course, office manager, our front office, Nate, who's our field manager, Vinny, operations manager. And so they're really the ones that help keep it going too. And but back then, when Jerry first came, our management staff was definitely lacking. We just didn't have it. It felt like we didn't have the manpower for it. And knowing what I know now, my regret is not delegating and empowering people sooner when it comes to being a leader, being in management. But it's like that struggle you go through. I can't afford to do this, and I can't afford to do that, and I need to do this. And it's very short-sighted. It was for me, because once you employ those people, and a lot of times they have better, different strengths than you do, and it can excel at a certain role. I say that about Vinny. Vinny is excellent at multitasking and problem solving and being organized. You go on his wall. I mean, there's paint on the wall, but really there's like 1,000 Post-it notes on the wall. And, I can't operate like that. And so he can. So find his strengths. He's got a military background. Find his strengths and build off of that. But when you can identify someone's strengths, empower them, encourage them, provide them the opportunity to step up, the right person will step up.
There you go. So, Brandy, you still had a question. I asked you to ask that one, but you still have your question to go, okay?
Yes, thank you. So you talked in your presentation at NCSG about a 6-month safety net. And I think that's so important, especially as interest rates rise and we go into a different type of economy. Where did you come up with the number, the 6 months? And tell us a little bit about that and why it was so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, so Candace, who is like our kind of in-house bookkeeper, definitely identified that number. And so that was a big one for that. And then we just kind of built off from there. So she set the goal of where she wants to get us to. growing up, I could say personally, working for other businesses, there was never a nest egg like that, ever, 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 ever. And so, wanting to provide a good place, a safe place where people can continue to work and the business can weather a storm was very important to me. And so, that's what we worked on. And again, bring it back to me, I would have never known enough of to do that or what it looked like. Bring the right people in that do. And, now we we just got this massive tax bill that I felt like ripped my spine, like I was telling you guys before, out from my back. And just because it's uncomfortable, it's a new number for me. It's big, it's uncomfortable. On the flip side of that, I'm extremely grateful for where our business is positioned, because I could take that. We still have this safety net. We are in great shape. It's a good problem to have. So,
yeah. But Brandy, I'm going to add to that. That was in his analysis. Part of what we deal with is the financial stability of the company. So what we encouraged was, and if you remember, this is in 2020, folks. What was happening in 2020? We were into the COVID years. Luckily, we were past the panic. But again, this was what he had, a strategic plan, and he did them step by step by step. So I just posted this comment that I think says it. Eating an elephant can take a while. However, it's well worth the small bites that it takes. And I also just posted up the link to an interview that Cheryl and I did with him in July of 2021, which was halfway between today and when I came into the company. So what we've done is we've done what he's done. He's worked the plan, even though sometimes it was painful. And did it hurt? And asked the question, what kind of leadership team? I'll tell you, there weren't one. Okay. Anthony, there weren't one. Okay.
Yeah.
We're crying out in the parking lot together one day. You remember that?
I remember. Oh, yeah. I was just about to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. You remember, Randy, when we called you, we were both crying in the parking lot that day. Okay. Because I told him, I said, to do this, we're going to need to bring Brandy in. And his words were, if you say it, let's do it.
That's right.
Okay. That's to me is the secret of Anthony, just to be honest with you. So Josh, it's your turn next.
All my questions are answered.
Okay. So don't worry. Brandy can always come up with many more. Okay. So not a problem. So Josh, let me ask you something. Are you learning from this as a business owner and as a coach, what we're talking about today?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I'm sitting there filling up a page with notes. Like I said, I really missed that when I had that minister of fun.
That's it.
That had that people element that I'm just, unfortunately, it's just not me.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't care about my employees, because I do. It's just that, and I can sit there with the best of them and break balls and, and do that stuff with them. But I'm not going to plan a picnic or a hot dog cookout or anything like that. If you say, hey, Josh, we're having a barbecue here on the 24th, I'm like, great. I'll bring the brisket and the pulled pork, and I'll make some baked beans and some other stuff. But that initial hurdle, it's just not who I am.
Yeah, and it's not. And that's the whole thing, Anthony. And that's why, like I said, when I look at the seminars that were done at the convention, and I presented two, okay, Cheryl presented one, Randy presented a couple. Again, I feel like the one you presented was at a level, it was spoken from the heart. Yeah, let's get real. You did have a couple Bloody Marys before you went up there, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No secrets held back, but it didn't affect your performance at all. So anyway, we've been through all else again. So, another question I got for you is, you are networking with other people in your market area. Okay. You are networking. There's Luke, the power washer. There's, and one of the things is, and this is a really big compliment, you network with a competitor. One of your best friends is Jason Toomey. And he's got a shop on the other side of town that actually I work with Jason based on your recommendation. So how is networking part of building your success story? Because you have a success story, and I don't know who this is, but I believe that might have been Maria right there that posted that. I ain't too sure. So, what's the secret to the networking? Why do you do this, and does it benefit you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I try to make that a part of my weekly schedule almost, where I am linking up with other business owners. Again, everyone's kind of across the same, they're all in the home service industry pretty much. And, going back to like, there was only so much I knew. It's those little conversations that I have learned. And somebody said this to me when the first Chimney convention, whatever, that I went to was the expo. And before I went, somebody said to me that the training is one thing. Like, of course you can learn some stuff there, but the gold nuggets are always in the conversation that you have with people. That same thing applies locally. So I surround myself with businesses who are like-minded, who are trying to stay up to date on stuff. I mean, I have gone out and sought those relationships. I don't wait for them to come to me. I've gone out and sought them. And, so I network with them. We talk about struggles. It's almost like a therapy session sometimes. Talk about struggles, new ideas that we're implementing, customer stories, anything like that, employee concerns, what we're doing to add value to the business. And we toss that up with each other, and fortunately, I'm surrounded with a group of like-minded business owners who either encourage, sometimes they'll offer advice or offer a new idea. I mean, that happens to me almost on a weekly basis. Now, it's not like every week I leave with this, oh, I need to implement this right now. Sometimes, but I need to implement this right now. Really, it just plants a seed for me. I've learned over time, plants a seed. And then when the time comes up, it clicks in the head of, remember this conversation. I learned this thing. So-and-so does this at their company. It works for them. Let me implement that here. Jason Toomey, really good friend of mine. When I look at when I first opened up, I had no knowledge of the chimney industry outside of my family. The Facebook forums were the first introduction I had to see how expansive it was. I put on there opening up a business. Jason in Rochester, Jason reaches out to me. He says, get certified, join the guild, blah, blah, blah. And, and that was big for me. I had no idea what the guild was, had idea about the certifications. And here is a local guy telling me like, hey, this worked for me, do these things. Now we usually text almost every day or every other day, talk at least once or twice a week. I got a missed call from him this morning, so he's probably going to be on my nuts for that. But, Jason's a good guy. And again, he's been a huge asset to my guys too. And I feel like we have been to him and his company as well, but that's definitely reciprocal. So.
Gotcha. So good answer there. Cheryl, this will be your last one. What's your final question for Sir Anthony?
Well, not that I'm privy to a lot of these analysis that Jerry sends out, but I lose a lot of hours because he's writing analysis. But if you're going back through the analysis, I know we've got hiring, we've got culture, we've got leadership, we've got systems, we've got on and on. If you had to pull out the part that put you the most where you're at now, is there a particular part that you can narrow on?
Yeah, management team, developing leaders within, zero doubt about it. So that was the big one. Yeah, everything has stemmed from that. I mean, everything has stemmed from that, has stemmed from the result of others. And like Jerry said, when he came in, there was none. There was me, and then that was kind of just it. Once we built that up, everything else just kind of trickles from that. I mean, identify the leaders, build them up, encourage them to take chances, to implement new ideas, have that kind of open discussion with people, and then your business, our business flourished at that point. So,
and to drill that down, Anthony, I saw you were a visionary. Okay, going to traction. In my mind, I saw that Anthony was a visionary. And when we look at Tommy Mello, Tommy is a visionary.
Yep.
And what he has a team of delegators. And that's how he gets this stuff done that he gets done with what he's doing. So, Brandy, I know this is tough for you, but this is your last one. So,
I know, and I always have to like have a comment before I can get to a question. My comment was actually that my husband says the same thing. He says at conventions that like the best learning happens in the hallways, in between the classes, and at night, which is hard for me because I'm an introvert. So I'm like looking for the staircase to sneak up. But my question is, you talked at convention in your class about community events. And we know that, especially for the millennials and Gen Zers, that's really important to them that their work is meaningful and giving back to the community. Can you just give us an example or two of how you've done that?
I can. I will also say your talk at HPBA, I remember Jerry was sitting right behind me. I absolutely loved that. And I love that you hit on each generation. It's like I knew that. It's like I knew it, never put words to it, but how you hit on each generation and what they value in the workplace, identifying that and trying to give that to them is how you sustain. I loved the way you put that. Absolutely loved. So yeah, I mean, so other than like the cookouts, all stuff like that, community, staying involved in the community. You know, we do cure childhood cancer. We do their big golf tournament. Everybody goes to that here, even the people that don't golf. It's just a mandatory thing. We do school lunch programs that we take care of. You know, now we're doing this new one where an employee every quarter is going to pick a community organization of their choice that we either donate financially, donate our time, you know, toys for kids. I mean, just all across the board. Like, you know, we also sponsor, you know, baseball teams, hockey teams, anything like that, that we try to stay plugged in the community. And I think that's what gives people a good sense of purpose too, is like, you're not just going to work for the man to do this job. You know, you're also making a difference outside of that. That's not going to affect every person, I've learned at a company. You know, but if you can have a positive effect on at least 30%, 30, 40, 50%, that's enough to make a meaningful impact. So
I love that. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay. So Sean has a question, and I think this is a critical one. Totally agree on building the leadership team. And that's just so you know, that's what he spoke on there, and he has been working to build leadership skills. But his question is, how did you find your leaders?
Yeah. I mean, so we've done it a few ways. I mean, in the most basic form, I identified like what a leader looks like, what this role needs to have, you know, and you try to sit down with people, hear their thoughts and visions on where they see it going. I think you can naturally identify some skills. What I will say is helpful too, that I know Cheryl does the DISC assessments. You know, that's a big part, especially as like more numbers become involved, more people become involved. You want the right person in the right roles. You know, there's DISC assessment. There's this other like personality index that it might sound weird, but they give you a pretty good predictor as how somebody's going to fit into a certain role. And, you know, and then even in a basic sense, you identify it within the company. Like, so for us, like I had the natural people that were already taking that on that I could see others going to. Like, you know, they're lead technicians just like anybody else, but 5 times a day they're getting a call from other leads. So why is that? Because they're viewed as a leader within the company. Basic stuff. And, you know, and that's how Vinny, Nate both moved into their roles. Is like, just, it was natural. I watched the flow of the company, how people looked at them, viewed at them, their strong points, identified what had to happen in this role. You know, Nate would not do a good job. I'm sure he would. Nate's strong suit is not doing what Vinny does. You know, it's not multitasking. It's not like this super organization thing. It's not constantly dealing with like these bullet points that have to get crossed off. Vinny's very great at that. Nate, very good at training, working with people, keeping a culture going. And again, I could see those both naturally within the company. I didn't have to force any of that. And yeah, so I guess that's it. Leadership training is another big one, though. It's something I've learned along the way. You know, we just did this thing at Rotary Club which is also a good plug for community events. Like, so I'm in Rotary Club here in Rochester. That's all about giving back to the community. I involve my company with anything that we do with that. We just went to this, it was Stephen M.R. Covey wrote this book called Trust and Inspire. It was all about leadership and how I want leadership to look here. And so I brought like most of the all the office staff there. And I think that's new. It's like, one, I had to learn, like, stay up on top of like technical training, everything like that. Then as you build a management team, a leadership team, it's equally important to have them stay plugged into leadership training. So.
Well, Anthony, I want to add too, you recognize the skills. You raised up none of your leaders were hired from outside, but what you saw leaders, like we didn't mention on there, and Anthony actually owns a waterproofing company. And what he did in this, he selected the person to lead this company from his existing workforce. Am I correct, Anthony?
That's right. Yeah, Dave.
And, so when you look at it, that's how he built his team. But he built his team because of his true beliefs of what he was trying to build. His mission was clear. His vision was clear. And he lived that vision, even though, Anthony, it was tough at times, right?
Yeah.
So here's my last question to you. And it's not really a question. It's asking for your opinion. Let's say we got somebody listening us right now. Let's say that they're sitting here and they're sitting there like you were at one day. And you said it, with $5,000, I'm going to start my own business. I'm starting here and I got the challenges. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to build this strategic plan that you guys are talking about. What would be your advice to that person to get them to where they can look at what they have built, the ranch they have, with the sense of pride that I hope you can look at Four Winds Chimney as?
Yeah. So it would, one, definitely be to get involved in the industry as much as you can. That's a big one. And then, it's being humble enough and vulnerable enough to identify that you don't know all the answers. And that sometimes, I think going back to the numbers thing, it's like, people get so caught up in like, well, if I hire a business coach or if I go to this training, I have to know if I spend X amount that I'm going to get X amount return on investment. I need to be able to track this. That did not work for me. I couldn't even wrap my brain around that. And so, and I think it's hard. I think it's a short-sighted way to look at things. I think it's mostly fear-based. And I think and again, I brought it back to like, I was confident that I could just work through anything. If I took a $5,000 loss, I'll work a Saturday or Sunday to make up for it. That was my thing. I always knew I could make it back. But I never had to. I mean, so to get involved, reach out to people, CVC, there's others out there too. Jerry and the team at CVC were huge with me, and just learn new things. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And get involved in the industry. Books are definitely a big one. Books, podcasts, try to fill your brain with as much as you can. And that's just what I did. And nowadays too, so I will say, despite like the mistakes that I made, I won't even say mistakes, because despite the choices I made of like being so focused on the business, what that's given me today, from hiring, people like Jerry, Brandy, CVC, from staying involved in the industry, has given me a freedom and a success at home that I've never had before. And, to take the Disney trips, to be present with my family. I wasn't even raised that way. All we did was work growing up. That's all the men did in my family was work. Really, like, because I was able to be vulnerable, hire people, coaches that could come in and provide a bullet point list of what to do. Doing stuff like that is really what gave me the freedom that I have today. Profitable business, happy employees, present at home, my family, and just freedom. So.
Oh, thank you, sir. So, Brandy, what would be summarize the last hour? If you were to summarize it in a short paragraph, what would you say about the last hour and the experience we just had with Anthony?
I'd probably steal Anthony's title of his presentation, People Over Profit.
Okay, good. Josh, what about you? You've been making notes, you've been learning, and hopefully this is part of what you can inspire in other people in your new realm here. So what have you picked out? How would you summarize this hour?
Um, and I think this is one of the struggles I've always had: promote from within. Because when it seems like when I've ever hired from without, people aren't willing to put the. I haven't found a manager that's willing to put in the. I've only had one manager in 15 years that was willing to put in the work. And unfortunately, his wife got a super cool job, and she looks better in her dress than me. So, no, but I really like that. I mean, it's got me thinking about who I have, and what job duties can I assign them more and keep them more engaged.
Okay, well, great. Cheryl, what about you? What would you summarize the last hour as?
Remarkable, actually. I mean, I look at people. I read people. That's what I do. And Anthony puts forth what he really feels. And to me, that's one of the hugest things in a person. Not what they want you to hear, not what they actually think you need to hear, but what they actually feel. And to me, that makes it a remarkable hour.
Thanks,
That's
Cheryl. A lot.
So, Anthony, you've said you've done everything I've ever told you to do. So, I'm going to give you another marching order today. Okay.
Hit me with it. Yeah.
Here you go. And this is to benefit others. I think you need to write a book. Do it my way.
All right. I'll hear you out.
I will tell you how to do it, Anthony. But Randy, don't you agree? A book from Anthony. I did it because Anthony, I don't know if you understand how many people look up to you as a. Now look at Brandy shaking her head. I don't think you realize what a role model you have become in this industry. Not only that, to other people. I mean, when I look at it, Randy Sperling just commented something on here. It's a graphic of some kind, and that's one of your buddies up there.
That's
And when
right.
you look at it, getting a positive comment out of her, that's a tough one right there. This has been a fantastic broadcast. Thanks, Anthony. But that's what this has been, Anthony. And I want to thank you so much for taking your time today. Like I said, this has given people an opportunity to do this. You're going to be, if you have enjoyed this and this is value, please consider sharing this on your own social media and get this word out, because to me, this is an American success story. When I look at a guy that, Bandy, I'm just going to say it, didn't really have a pot to pee in 5 years ago, right? Five grand ain't going to get you a whole lot of ways.
Yep.
But I can remember, and I'm sure Brandy and Cheryl can well remember the SWAT meeting we had 2 years ago because they were participating. Look at Cheryl. They know where you've been. Brandy's been there, worked with you through this blood, sweat, and tears. It is. And just like you've inspired big old boy Josh there today. And that's what I want to encourage you to continue doing. Be this role model. Share your processes and don't hang up whenever we end this broadcast, because I got a couple more things. But someone else said, thanks for sharing your story. So anyway, we want to thank you for watching us today here on the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. I promised you at the beginning of this episode that this was going to be a time of value. And to be honest with you, Anthony, I'm going to put you right up there with the Tommy Mellos, the other people, the Larry Wingett's. We've interviewed a lot of people. But Cheryl, wouldn't you agree he rates right there at the top as an interviewee on here?
I did. I think we need to get him and Tommy on here together.
Get him and Tommy together, okay? See, that's what you do. So I want you to write a book here, okay? So you're going to think about that, and I'll tell you the process of how to do it, okay?
Well, as long as I can include pictures in it. So
you can do pictures. So anyway, we appreciate you joining us. Be here next week. Brandy, tell them who our guest is next week. You've lined up for our interview next week.
Yeah, it's Lauren Turncock, and she also presented at the NCSG, and she works for a company and just has an incredible story about how she really came into this industry and into all of her roles and all the jobs she's ever had without any experience, and how she has really taken control of that and learned the experience mostly on her own. And it's just a very inspiring story.
Okay, so be sure and tune us in next week here. Same time, same station. Everything else stays the same. And with that, we're going to end this with Brandy's classic opening. Happy day to every one of you.